welcome to the Scrunch Creator Economy Show. It is an honor to have you.
Thank you very much. It's very early in the morning here in the UK, but it is an absolute honor to be on this show. I can't wait. I can't wait to get going.
Amazing. Well, I hope you have a coffee in hand.
I do indeed.
Excellent, excellent. And now, so you are the creator of YorkshirePud.co.uk.
Yes.
But that's not the only thing you are. I have a laundry list here of, let me read it out. This is so cool. So obviously you're the creative force behind Yorkshire Pud blog, the reigning world Yorkshire pudding champion, star of ITV's Food Glorious Food, ITV's Country House Sunday, and you've been on the BBC The One Show, and obviously regular contributor to BBC Radio Leeds. Like I said, do you sleep ever?
Well, couple that with the fact that I've got a proper job, and
Wow.
I've just spent 7 months converting a horse box into a mobile bar.
Oh
and
gosh,
it's
so
a question
cool.
I get asked an awful lot: how on earth do you sleep? But I suppose really my creator and influencer journey is that's been a 11 year journey now. So that, you know, all that sort of list of achievements that we've done over the years has been done over a long period. And I would say that I was there right at the very beginning, if that makes sense, of when influencing really kind of got going to an extent.
Absolutely. If we're talking 10 years, that's definitely at the beginning. We're not even calling them influencers, it's bloggers back then.
Exactly.
So how did you get started? What was your, career path before becoming a creator? How did you actually get into it?
It was completely by accident, if I'm brutally honest. So for 20 years, I worked as a learning and development manager. Mm-hmm. So I worked for corporate organizations, teaching management, leadership, etc. And I had this idea that when we're in a classroom, and when I'm teaching people in a classroom, you always get what I would call the class SWAT. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with that word, but basically the person who's got the biggest mouth and therefore quite often comes across as the most knowledgeable and the most intelligent in that field, because they're very good at putting themselves in that classroom situation. So my idea was to take the leadership training to a next level and take them out of the classroom. And we were going to do almost like a MasterChef type situation where we gave all these people a load of ingredients and said, there you go, you've got to cook for the directors of the business. So I interacted with a local cookery school. Anyway, for one reason or another, that sort of went down a different path. But this cookery school put me on a newsletter, if you like, that came out one day and said, look, we're going to do a Yorkshire pudding competition. Would you like to enter? So I'd been on a corporate event the day before. I was a little bit hungover, to say the least, and I turned up.
That's how all good stories start. Yes,
exactly. Yeah. So I turned up to this cookery school, and I made some Yorkshire puddings. And lo and behold, I won. I couldn't believe it.
Had you ever made a Yorkshire pudding before?
Yeah, I mean, look, when you're from Yorkshire, it's like the task that you have to learn at some point in your life to master. To be a true Yorkshireman, you have to be able to make Yorkshire pudding. So, yeah, I'd spent some time learning the art of making Yorkshire puddings. And like I say, I turned up and I won this competition. I got this trophy. And in the conversation afterwards, the creators of the competition said, we should call this the World Yorkshire Pudding Champion, because there's no other event that takes place where this is. So I jumped on that straight away. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's me.
Yes, definitely. I am the world champion. Yes.
Exactly. And you know, nothing really happened with that for at least another 12 months. And this is where the story gets even more crazy. So my wife used to be in the British soap Coronation Street.
Oh, cool.
And I used to do a little bit of TV work as well. So I'd done some work on a British TV show called Hollyoaks, as well as a few other programs. And I said to my wife, I woke up one morning, I said, I want to be on TV again. I've not done TV for a while. And we saw an advert in one of the national newspapers that said Simon Cowell was going to do a regional food program, and they were looking for entries. So you can imagine when I wrote to them and said I'm the World Yorkshire Pudding Champion, the television crew turned up relatively quickly. And literally a week before we were due to film, the cookery school held the competition again. I went along to the competition. I won, thankfully. Otherwise, it could have been quite embarrassing.
Yes. Held on to the title. I love it.
Exactly. It was like, you have to give me this. We're about to go on TV. This could be good for you.
Yes.
And it went from there, really. So obviously I starred in the TV programme. We bought the web domain at the time, Yorkshire Pud. Obviously did the same with, then, I mean, it was before Instagram, so we did the same with Facebook and Twitter. Mm-hmm. And it went from there, really. I remember the night that the first episode was shown, me and my wife literally stayed up until 4 o'clock in the morning with TweetDeck in front of us, liking, sharing, commenting on anybody who had commented on me. And we just grew the audience from there, really. And it was a lot of hard work that we did, but it was the beginning. It was the beginning.
Wow, that's incredible. It's really interesting, though, because I don't think people know that that's the amount of work that kind of needs to go into building your audience, that level of engagement with people that are interested in your space or interacting with you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And even to this day, there are people that follow me and interact with me on a daily and weekly basis who started with me in that journey 10, 11 years ago.
Wow, that's incredible.
It is. And what it shows is that investment that we put back in all them years ago is exactly the difference that has made. And sometimes I feel a bit bad in that we don't really use Twitter like we used to. Today for us, it's all about Instagram and Facebook to a degree. I haven't quite gone down the TikToker route yet. But it's quite a fickle sort of process, isn't it? Because you jump from one platform to another, but there are people that have followed and jumped from them platforms with us, which has been absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and I guess having the website as well is probably super important. I often say that to people that, it's great to be on a platform like Instagram, but you don't really own your audience on Instagram. You do need that home base.
Yeah, you're right. And I think what it's been really interesting to see the difference in the website, because at one point the website is where everybody would go for your images. So I went down a route where I was asked to eat at just about every restaurant you can imagine, and I still am today. But when I write a restaurant review, the website used to be the only place where you would see a multitude of photos. Twitter only really allowed you to post one.
Yes.
Facebook was very difficult because of the algorithms in Facebook to actually get that content out for a small creator. So your website was without a doubt the place. I've actually seen that decrease over time. I don't think it is anymore. I think Instagram allows you to put that multitude of imagery through reels, etc., etc. But even so, I completely agree. You've got to have a website, because I think what it does is it adds value to what you create as an influencer or as a creator.
Yeah, absolutely. And so how have you seen your business evolve? So you mentioned being invited to eat in just about every restaurant. I'm very jealous. How has that translated into a business for you? Are you able to make any money out of being a creator?
It's been a really difficult and sometimes, I suppose, regrettable journey in the fact that I have never taken the leap to make it a full-time job.
Yep.
I strongly believe I could have, but what stopped me from doing that is that I was in I was in a very, very well-paid, I still am in a very, very well-paid job, and therefore the difference and the bridge was too wide for me to bridge effectively. And that's been the difficult thing for me. I suppose I was, I'm now 42, 43. So as my career and earnings have matured, the social media route hasn't quite kept up with that. So it was, I think if I was 22, 23 now and my earnings were a lot less, I would have definitely made the jump, but I couldn't afford to do that. So to some extent, it's regrettable because I look at other influencers and I go, yeah, I wish I had a bit of that. However, what I experienced pre-COVID was a bit of a lull. So I'd been riding this wave for a long time, working with some incredible brands, and then I experienced a lull. And the lull was during the time of 100,000 plus followers of influencers that were out there, and brands suddenly wanted really to engage with anybody who had 100,000 followers or more. And that seriously affected me. But what I've seen in the last sort of post-COVID is that attitude has changed again.
Yes,
so
definitely.
I'll cite one brand that I work with. So I work with the Ivy. I don't know if that's a known brand for your listeners, but the Ivy is a very exquisite restaurant that's based in the UK. They started with one restaurant in London that was a bit of a celebrity haunt, and now they've expanded across the UK. Now, I've worked with them now for some time, and I asked them recently in a meeting, why do you work with me? Why do you work with somebody who's got sub 50,000 followers? Why aren't you working with somebody? And basically what they said is it's all about authenticity. So what they've realized as a brand is that while somebody may, on the face of it, look like they've got a huge following, actually the following have got wise to the fact that these people have been paid to go there, and therefore they will say anything to make sure that they secure the fee. Yes. And what they said to me is that, for me, I don't actually charge that brand anything, and some people might think I'm stupid, but it allows me to go and eat there whenever I want with my family. So I don't charge them anything. And they said, what we get from you, Chris, is absolute authenticity. We know that you and your readers will know that you're not being paid to be there, or if you are, you're being paid a lot smaller sum than maybe some of these, and therefore what you say is true. And that's why we want to work with you. So I've seen that real shift in the last 6 to 8 months, and it seems to be coming back to reward me again, which is lovely because I get to eat in lots of restaurants again.
And that is so cool. I actually love that you divulged that piece of information, because I think that if you say, if you, even people who have built 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 followers, that's a mean feat. Like, that is hard work.
It is.
And I think that there's, this thought process that once you get there, it'll be so easy to replace your full-time income. And it is just not true. I think that if you rely on brand deals to make a living, it can be really, really difficult. And so, we see a lot of creators who have full-time jobs and then make that decision. Do I want to just use this as a way to live an extraordinary life, which it sounds like you're doing, or do I want to have a little bit of income coming in, or do I want to use it to kind of start a business around some kind of product and service? But like, how cool that you get to get the pick of restaurants that you want to eat at and enjoy that with your family. That's incredible.
Yeah, and there's 2 points that you've made there that's really interesting. I mean, look, first of all, I have eaten, in everything from a Michelin star restaurant, in London, to I once went on a 5-day press trip to Porto. Wow. And there's a funny story in this one, actually. I'll tell this story very quickly. I was invited to go to Porto as a journalist, and I turned up and there was somebody there from the Decanter and somebody there from the Times. And I did at the time think, why, really? Anyway, I went with it, and we were trying port for 5 days. And I remember going into this first place, and these 2 experienced port drinkers are taking a sip, spitting it out. And I'm a proper Yorkshireman.
No way.
Can't wait. So off I goes. They had to wheel me into my bed that night.
That's
the
amazing.
Next morning, 9 a.m., we get picked up to start trying port again. I can tell you the next morning I was spitting it. There's absolutely no doubt about it.
You learned your lesson, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So look, I've worked in Spain, I've worked in New York, I've worked in Portugal, I've worked all over the UK. But actually, it's only now, and it's only in the last 6 months that I've actually been able to turn that into some monetary value by setting a business and piggybacking my social. Nice. So I mentioned at the start of this conversation that me and two of my mates have just spent 7 months. We bought a 40-year-old rice horse box, which effectively is a trailer. It goes on the back of the car. We spent 7 months converting it into a uber trendy bar.
That is so cool. Yep.
It is cool. It's cool. It's seriously cool. And what Yorkshire Pud has allowed me to do is put a brand together. I know what brands look for, what consumers look for, and we've put a really cool brand together. And now I'm piggybacking my Yorkshire Pud social media to promote Northern Box Bar. And that's really, really working for me. And that's now converting into cash. Now I can look at the bank. Yeah.
Yeah, that is so cool, because I think that I love this because people do get trapped in that sponsored post hamster wheel, and they're going, all I've got to do is try and grow followers, and almost like they're working for the brands. But I love that you're now working for yourself. So you've had an awesome idea. You've had years of interacting with consumers and brands, so you know what they want, and you've got the following to promote it yourself, and you don't have to pay yourself. You don't have to go and pay other influencers. You are the influencer for the brand.
Yeah, and I know not a lot more influencers who can help me to sort of push that brand. And to give you some idea, when we were coming towards the end of that build, I said to the guys, I think we've lost it for this year. I don't think we'll get any events. We've almost finished the project too late into the year. 5 weeks in, so 5 weeks since it was finished, we've done 5 events.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
What a week. Which is, we targeted ourselves 8 events this year. We've done 5 already. We will smash that. Absolutely smash that. So what it does is it shows the power, not just of the social, but actually the ability to put a brand together, because you've become an expert.
Yes.
By working with some incredible brands, and that IP effectively now sits in here,
Oh, exactly. And I think that creators or influencers or bloggers or however you identify these days should really take that on board, because it's not just, promote this lip gloss or whatever it is. It's actually developing a relationship with a business and a marketing professional. And I do this all the time. So what's your strategy at the moment? What's working? What's not working? Like, pick their brain and take more than money or a product, like actually develop some IP and understanding so that you can apply that to your own business in the future.
And I think you're right. And I think the other thing that I would, and we don't know the answer to this, but if we look at influencers and creators who grow in age, does their appeal decrease as their age increases?
Good question.
And we don't really know the answer to that, do we? Because I'm probably at the end of that. I'm nearing creator retirement.
You're the OG. Yeah.
I'm the grandfather of influencing. We don't really know that, and therefore it's good at this point, just like a footballer would effectively, to start making investments now, so that if you have taken that leap and this is your full-time job, you have got something to fall back on when that influencing sphere ends for you, or comes to an end.
Yeah, and they do say that there is a timeline. It's really interesting. I think they say there's kind of like a window, like a 3 to 5 year window, unless you can take your audience somewhere new. So you might have been a fashion and beauty influencer, but now you've had a family. So if you can kind of attract new followers around the fact that now you talk about your family or travel, or if you can kind of take people on that journey or acquire new followers in a new niche, then you can kind of extend the life. life. But I love what you said about creating an asset for yourself.
Yes.
That's either related or, you know, in some similar area to what you've been influencing or creating content around. I think that's so smart because creating a business asset is just like investing in, you know, shares or, you know, whatever it might be, so that you do have some other form of income coming in over and above a full-time job.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's key. And I've seen it with a few people. I mean, there's one influencer in London who I watch an awful lot. I've known him for a long time. He left his job. He's gone full time, and he is without a doubt making a success of it. But he's really lucky that he's a personal trainer.
Yeah,
and nice. He has that skill in the closet to fall back on should he ever need that. So yeah interesting.
And that's it. It's interesting, you know, that's sort of how we try and open up people's minds a little bit as well, is like, what is a skill or some kind of expertise that you have? You might be talking about, say, food or whatever, but what's the skill that you have? Is it that you know how to grow Instagram followers, or the personal trainer, or the, you know, even you with the education background? So what is kind of the thing? I think that's something that influencers need to think about, is how they can create that business or product and service around something that they're an expert in. Yeah, so how did you find building the business? So, you know, you obviously have the full-time job, you've obviously been a content creator, but teaming up with a couple of friends and going through a physical renovation build and creating that business and attracting clients, like that's a whole nother kettle of fish. How was that process?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of learnings over the years, and now I've become quite an expert in it, really. I think I learned through the TV industry that the TV will tell you what you need to know, not exactly, you know, what you should know. And I always think marketing teams are very similar. They will give you enough to entice you, but not enough for you to actually make a good, educated decision on it. And back in the early days, I used to get really sort of wooed by things. And I'd jump on it, and then I'd start thinking, hang on a minute, this company's really getting their pound of flesh out of me, and I've not really put a costing together on this. And I think the other thing is, back in the early days, I used to do things either very cheap or free. And then the marketing team wanted their pound of flesh out of me, but when they weren't getting that because there was no value to it, they were getting frustrated, if that makes sense. So I think what I've now learned is, where it's a brand that will propel your own brand and you've got a longer term relationship with them, and I cite the Ivy as a really great example, I'm willing to work with a brand like that for nothing or for a very little fee, if that makes sense. The Ivy is a good example where I don't charge them anything. And there's probably people screaming right now, no, don't do that. But they propel my brand. They're a good, strong brand. It's worth working for them. I had an email just yesterday with a local company who wanted literally three things. Can you do this, this, this? And there was absolutely no discussion about what's in it for me. There was lots about what's in it for them, but nothing about what's in it for me. And what I would say to any of your agencies out there is with them, what's in it for me? So create that for the influencer so that they feel they're getting something out of this. And therefore you're probably likely to get a reduced fee with that individual because they're getting something out of it, or indeed you might in some cases get it for nothing. The email I got yesterday, where there was nothing in it for me whatsoever, got an email back that simply said, what's your budget?
Yeah, exactly.
And because why should I do all of them things for them? What do I get out of that? Whereas, you know, there are brands that'll write to me and say, Chris, we're launching a new restaurant. This is our menu. This is our concept. And we'd really love it if you can push it. And the best way we think you could push it is if you came to our restaurant, let us spoil you, your wife and your little girl. and come and enjoy and we'll look after you, etc., etc. Then that pulls on my heartstrings. I'm like, totally, I'll do that.
And the fact that they even like went to the effort of finding out that you had a wife and a little girl as well.
Oh my days, the amount of companies who send me a message and they claim to know everything about me, and then you look at the content and you think, nah,
you
this
have
is
not
just
looked me up at all. Yeah.
Yeah, go away. So I think that's the biggest tip, is to make sure that when you're wanting something that you really outline to the influencer what they're going to get out of it.
Yeah.
And I think by doing that, you are likely to reduce the amount of cash that you have to pay somebody for them to do something. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And that's come with time. I've learned that with time, because I think there was a period where people were taking advantage of me. But the desire, and influencers will have this, the desire to get on that bandwagon means that I was able to be taken advantage of. And when I look back, I'm like, I was a bit silly there, but I always spin things into a positive. It's not about being silly, it's about learning from that experience and making sure it doesn't happen in the future, you know.
Absolutely, that's right. And so obviously you've had plenty of time to learn those lessons. Do you think that there is still room for people now? If somebody was listening into this, they're sitting in their full-time job and they're thinking, gosh, I'd love a little side hustle. Do you think there's still room for people with great ideas to become content creators or build a business out of their influence?
Yes, I think there is. But I think, and I don't know what this is like. Obviously, this is a big show and going out to different countries. But in the UK right now, we are in the midst of a crisis in terms of income and spend, and our energy bills are increasing massively. And the cost of living ultimately is going up, hugely. Now, I don't like to concentrate on negatives. I always like to look at the positives.
Love that, yes.
And I'm already planning what this will mean for me as an influencer. Okay, so if there's people out there listening right now, what I would say is listen very carefully, because there is that open door for somebody to come in. However, I strongly believe habits in the UK are going to go back to how they were in the 1980s. And what I mean by that is that going out for something to eat is no longer going to be a flippant decision. I'm not going to, me and other people in the UK are not going to go shopping on a Saturday and suddenly say, do you know what, let's not bother with having dinner at night. Let's go for pizza. That flippant decision is gone, or is going. That will lead to a lot of restaurants closing down. And I predict over the next 2 years, 50% of restaurants in the UK will close.
Wow.
It's huge. It's huge. And a lot of them will close because they simply can't afford to turn on the lights or put on the cooker because of the cost of that, versus the customers that are coming through the door because of that quality, that decision.
Yeah.
So I strongly believe that people will start going out for dinner as a special occasion. So it's a once a month, or it is a birthday or a celebration, or it's something. And therefore, for that reason alone, quality will become number one priority. If I'm going to spend money, and I'm willing to spend money at the rate I spent before, I'm more than happy to spend 50, 60 pounds per person on a really good meal. But I'm going to demand absolute 100% quality. And that's not just from the food, that's from the service, it's from the ambience, it's from all of them things.
Yeah.
And what we've had over the last 20 years is a load of restaurants that have set up that have just delivered that flippant decision food. I'm not saying bad quality, I'm just saying that there's a pizza, it's $9.99. That's really good. Yeah, absolutely. And therefore, I now, as an influencer and a creator, need to start thinking about, how do I position my business to make sure that I'm ahead of that, and that actually I'm now starting to interact with businesses who deliver that quality, and therefore people start naturally following my direction because they're looking for restaurants that are delivering absolute quality, as opposed to, you know, big smashed burgers that are that size that we're going to pay 15 quid for, because they're going to become that fad food is going to become a thing of the past, without a doubt. What somebody's going to be looking for is a burger that size, but as absolute prime beef, the best cheese, you know, the best gherkins that have been, I don't know, put in some sort of water solution for 800 days so they taste amazing. Homemade ketchup with honey in it. That's what we're not going to be looking at. Tower burgers that fall apart and get messy, and that's going to change. That's my prediction.
Yeah, and I think you're right in terms of, if we're being more considered about where we go, that research will happen with influencers and creators.
Absolutely. I'll give you one example. I was asked to go and consult in a restaurant a couple of months ago, and this restaurant was struggling with footfall. Now, the location wasn't great, but their menu was superb. It was based on an American smokehouse. They'd invested something like £40,000 in a smoker that they'd had imported from the US.
Wow.
Incredible. But when you went inside, it was very cafe style, tables, chairs and tablecloths, and you got your food on a tray. And you were paying £30 to £35 a head for this food.
Wow.
And I simply said to them, I said, I'll give you 6 months maximum. 6 months maximum. You've got to change your business model. 3 weeks later, they closed down.
Oh, no.
Really sad story. But that's what's going to happen. It's definitely what's going to happen.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to watch, won't it? Because I mean, it's not unique to the UK. We've got the same thing going on here, and I think globally, you know, people are there's layoffs of people's jobs. There's, you know, so much change and uncertainty going on. I think you're right. If people are making far more considered decisions about where they go, then researching with the influencers is going to make a lot of sense. Amazing. Well, I mean, that's, to be honest, you have provided so much incredible value today. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. I guess maybe to close it out, you mentioned, so, you know, trends moving towards the smaller influencers and higher quality. Is there anything else that you see, you know, if you were somebody, either a brand looking to run a campaign today, or you're a creator who was kind of thinking about the future, what do you think is coming for the influencer or creator industry?
Well, authenticity, I think. I think that's got to be meaningful, authentic. You know, I watched a very, very, very well-known female Instagrammer 2 days ago claim that she was wearing this cycling gear because she likes to cycle from time to time. And she referred to the road bike that she had as a mountain bike or a road bike or a sports bike or whatever it's called. Straight away, I knew she was being paid to wear them clothes, and it was nothing. She'd never been on a bike in her life.
Yeah.
And that's the one tip, authenticity. And that will be driven through our culture change that we are going through. COVID has changed that.
Yes.
The cost of living will change that. It's going to be about making sure we're getting absolute quality. And I think that will also transfer into the influencer market. So my tip would be, stop working with females because they sexualize their Instagram and therefore you get lots of people looking at your product. Engage with people who are actually knowledgeable about clothes or fashion or makeup or food, and are authentic and actually know their stuff. And I think that's the way the market's going.
I love that so much. And I feel like it's going to actually help people break through, because sometimes I think people hold themselves back thinking they've got to create this beautiful image. And that's not the case, because I'm doing this podcast in my tracksuit pants because it's cold here, but you know, but it's like, that's what I want to see. You know, I want to see the real life, because that's what we're all dealing with at the moment. We've all got challenges. We're all, you know, trying to figure out our place in this new world. So if we're seeing creators reflect that back to us authentically, I think that that's going to be massive. I agree.
And I suppose the only other thing I would say is, if you've got any clients in Australia who want somebody to come and make Yorkshire puddings,
yes,
they now know
you're the man.
Really authentic, really authentic, really
well, you
genuine.
are the world champion.
Exactly. I'll come and make Yorkshire puddings.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Chris. You are incredible. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you getting up early and being open and honest with our community.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been an absolute blast. Thank you.